The city was a sea of lights, a bustling metropolis that never seemed to sleep. Yet, there was something alluring about the quiet solitude of the night, a sense of mystery that drew me in. Little did I know that my decision to venture out alone at night would lead me down a path of terror and darkness, transforming an ordinary night into a chilling, true horror story that would forever haunt my dreams. The evening had begun like any other, a quiet dinner with friends, laughter, and camaraderie. But as the night wore on and my friends decided to call it a night, an inexplicable urge took hold of me. I wanted to experience the city in a way I never had before, in the stillness of the night, when the streets were empty and the world seemed to belong to me alone. I left the warmth of the restaurant and stepped out into the cool night air. The streets were bathed in the soft glow of streetlights, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with a life of their own. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the silence, a rhythmic beat that resonated with the beating of my heart. As I walked, a sense of exhilaration washed over me. The city that had been bustling with life just hours before was now mine to explore, mine to unravel its secrets. I strolled through empty parks, admired the grandeur of towering skyscrapers, and reveled in the sensation of being alone in a world that usually teemed with activity. But as the hours ticked by, the city's allure began to wane. A feeling of unease settled over me, a primal instinct that whispered of lurking dangers. The shadows seemed to grow darker, the silence more oppressive. It was as if the very atmosphere had shifted, and I was no longer the master of my surroundings. I decided to make my way back home, the city's charm overshadowed by an unsettling sense of vulnerability. My footsteps quickened, the echo growing louder in the empty streets. And then just as I turned a corner, I heard it, a faint, indistinct whisper, carried by the wind. I stopped in my tracks, my heart racing. I strained to listen, but the whisper was gone, carried away like a fleeting breath. I tried to shake off the feeling, convincing myself that it was my imagination playing tricks on me. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted, and I couldn't ignore the sense that I was not alone. As I continued walking, the whispers returned, soft, insidious, like a chorus of voices just beyond the edge of comprehension. I felt a chill crawl down my spine, a shiver that had nothing to do with the cool night air. It was as if the shadows themselves were whispering secrets, sharing their hidden truths with me. My pace quickened, the world around me becoming a blur. I wanted to escape the whispers, the growing sense of unease that seemed to tighten its grip on my mind. But no matter how fast I walked, the whispers persisted, their words growing clearer, yet still impossible to decipher. And then, in the distance, I saw a figure, a silhouette against the backdrop of a dimly lit alleyway. My heart leaped, a mixture of fear and curiosity propelling me forward. The figure stood still, its presence enigmatic and unnerving. As I approached, I could make out more details. A hooded figure, standing with its back turned to me. A sense of foreboding settled over me, but I couldn't resist the urge to see what lay beyond the shadows. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling in the stillness. The figure didn't respond, but I could sense its awareness, its presence. It was as if the alleyway itself held its breath, waiting for something to happen. And then, with a slow, deliberate movement, the figure turned around. The face that greeted me was unlike anything I had ever seen, pale, almost translucent, with eyes that seemed to hold an eternity of sorrow. The figure's lips moved, forming words that I could hear, yet couldn't comprehend. The whispers that had haunted me throughout the night seemed to emanate from this very being. A feeling of dread washed over me, a realization that I had stumbled upon something beyond human understanding. I turned to flee, my heart pounding, but the alleyway seemed to stretch infinitely, the exit always just out of reach. Panic set in, and I felt as if I was trapped in a nightmare, a reality that defied all logic. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the figure's presence vanished. The alleyway returned to its normal dimensions, and I found myself standing alone, the weight of the encounter still heavy on my mind. The city's lights seemed harsh, the shadows accusing. I stumbled back to my apartment, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and fear. The whispers still echoed in my ears, their words haunting me, taunting me with their incomprehensible meaning. I locked the door behind me, the solitude of my apartment now a refuge from the terrors of the night. But even in the safety of my home, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched, that the presence from the alleyway had followed me. I tried to shake off the fear, to tell myself that it was all a product of my imagination, a result of my decision to venture out alone at night. Days turned into nights, and the city that had once felt like home now seemed like a labyrinth of shadows and secrets. The whispers continued to haunt my every waking moment, their incessant murmur a constant reminder of the encounter in the alleyway. Sleep became elusive, my nights plagued by nightmares that blurred the line between reality and imagination. I would wake up drenched in sweat, the memory of the figure's face etched in my mind. The darkness itself seemed to hold a malevolent energy, a force that fed on my fear and uncertainty. Desperate for answers, I began to research the history of the city, scouring old records and local legends for any mention of the hooded figure or the whispers that had tormented me. It was during my research that I stumbled upon a story, a tale of a shadowy presence that had been rumored to appear to those who ventured out alone at night. The figure was said to be a harbinger of doom, a manifestation of the city's dark history and the secrets it held. Those who encountered it were said to be cursed, haunted by the whispers, and plagued by a sense of impending tragedy. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The city's alleys and streets held a history of their own, a history that I had unwittingly become entangled in. The encounter in the alleyway was not an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern that had played out over generations. With a growing sense of determination, I sought out those who had encountered the figure before me. I listened to their stories, their experiences mirroring my own, the whispers, the sense of being watched, the feeling of being trapped in a nightmare. It was as if the figure's presence transcended time, an entity that existed beyond the confines of our reality. Armed with the knowledge of those who had come before me, I began to formulate a plan. I reached out to a local psychic, hoping that they could provide insight into the nature of the figure and the whispers that had haunted me for so long. The psychic's words were chilling. The figure was a manifestation of the city's darkest secrets, a guardian of the forgotten and the forsaken. The whispers were the voices of those who had suffered, their pain and anguish echoing through the ages. The encounter in the alleyway had opened a door to a realm of darkness, and I was now connected to its malevolent energy. With the psychic's guidance, I embarked on a journey to confront the figure once and for all. Armed with talismans and incantations, I returned to the alleyway where it had all begun. The air was thick with tension, a palpable sense of anticipation. And then, as if summoned by my presence, the figure appeared. Its gaze met mine, and for a moment time stood still. I could feel the weight of its sorrow, the burden of its existence. But this time, there was something different, a glimmer of recognition in its eyes. With the psychic's guidance, I spoke the incantations, the words carrying a power that seemed to pierce through the darkness. The figure's form began to waver, its presence weakening as if it was being pulled away from this reality. And then, with a final whisper, the figure vanished. The alleyway returned to its normal dimensions, the shadows receding. The weight that had plagued my mind for so long began to lift, the whispers fading into the distance. As I walked away from the alleyway, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had confronted not just a malevolent presence, but a part of the city's history itself. The true horror story of that night would forever be etched in my memory, a reminder that the night holds secrets and mysteries that can test the limits of our understanding. And as I looked back at the city's lights, I couldn't help but wonder what other terrors lay hidden in the depths of the darkness, waiting to be uncovered by those who dare to venture alone at night.